They let me go for something no one even knew yet, my pregnancy. No performance warnings, no missed deadlines. Just a soft conversation about being overextended, a reassigning of my role, and a smile too rehearsed to be kind. I hadn't even told anyone. Just me, a plastic test with 2 pink lines, and the quiet decision to keep it all to myself. For now. They assumed I'd stay quiet. They didn't know silence was something I could weaponize. The lines appeared instantly. Bold. Unmistakable. I sat on the bathroom floor, knees pulled to my chest, holding the test like it might change its mind. I was 30, single, and 5 weeks pregnant. Mark, the ex, was long gone, and I didn't plan to rewind that chapter. This wasn't his journey, it was mine. Dr. Anita Patel confirmed it the next day with calm professionalism. Early pregnancy, strong indicators, no complications so far. She smiled gently. Whatever you decide, I'm here. You don't have to rush anything. But I had already decided. At work, I held the news like a glass ornament. Not hidden, just not offered. We were gearing up for the product release, the kind of pressure cooker cycle that turned competent people into caffeine-addled wrecks. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted normal. I blocked my calendar for medical appointments under vague admin time. I skipped late-night Slack threads and avoided anything that smelled like burnout. I thought I was managing the balance well. Until the elevator. It was Tuesday. I remember because it was the first morning I'd felt a real wave of nausea but pushed through with ginger tea and a bland bagel. I got in early, as usual. The office was still quiet, that sweet spot before the energy turns frantic. I stepped into the elevator just as Connor Blake slid in behind me. Connor, my manager. 40-something, sharp-suited, always speaking in the calm, concerned voice of a man used to winning. His cologne smelled like cedarwood and control. He tapped his phone. "Morning, Emily." "Morning." Silence. Then he said it. Casual, like he was asking about lunch plans. "You've been off lately. A little slow to respond. Maybe it's time we got you some support." Support? I blinked, kept my face still. I wasn't aware I was behind. Connor looked up from his phone. "You're not behind. Yet. But you're stretched. We can all see it." I nodded once. "I'll keep that in mind." The elevator chimed. He walked out without looking back. But I stayed in for one extra floor just to catch my breath. By that afternoon, I noticed things had shifted. Tasks reassigned. Notes left for coverage, even though I hadn't asked for any. Meetings moved without explanation. It was subtle. The kind of slow sidelining that doesn't leave bruises, but still takes you out. 2 days later, Linda Hart from HR sent me a message. "Let's touch base briefly. 15 minutes, okay?" I knew what was coming. Linda always smiled like she was already apologizing, and that day was no different. We sat in a small glass-walled conference room where everything felt too exposed. She had a single sheet of paper in front of her, not printed on letterhead, no official stamp, just clean, minimal language. "Due to current workload demands, we are adjusting your responsibilities to ensure delivery consistency. This agreement is internal and confidential. We ask that you refrain from discussing this adjustment externally." A silence paper. I hadn't said the word out loud, but it echoed in my head anyway. I read it again. The language was careful. No mention of pregnancy, no mention of removal. But the timeline was clear. Right after that elevator ride, right after I started using my lunch breaks for prenatal appointments, right after Connor noticed I wasn't chasing down Slack threads at midnight anymore. "I didn't request a change," I said, my voice even. Linda nodded, her hands folded in front of her. We just want to protect your time, help you manage better. You'll keep your title, your pay, just less pressure, less visibility, more like. I looked at the line again. Do not discuss reasons for reassignment with internal or external parties, including media. They were protecting themselves, not me. My hand hovered over the pen. I'd advise signing, Linda added gently. This is just to keep things running smoothly. I signed. Not because I agreed, but because I needed time. Because fighting too early is how you lose. But I took the paper home, photocopied it, photographed the key section, labeled the image discreetly in a locked folder on my personal drive. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the city buzzing outside my window, and opened my laptop. I searched. HR reassignment during pregnancy confidentiality clause. A dozen useless blog posts, a few horror stories, and then a name, Sophie Lee, business journalist. Headline, How Companies Hide Maternity Discrimination Behind Confidentiality. I read every word. Then I opened an anonymous email account and typed a message that was short, careful, and just true enough to open a door. They told me to stay quiet about the truth. I didn't even announce my pregnancy. I think they knew anyway. I signed it. Emily. Not her real name. Then I clicked send. The game had begun. They didn't schedule it on my calendar. That should have been the first sign. Just a tap on the shoulder from Linda while I was reviewing sprint notes at my desk. Connor wants a quick chat, she said, her tone as light as if she were offering coffee. Room 4B. I should have said no, should have asked for written context. But in the culture we worked in, declining a quick chat with your boss was like lighting a match in a dry field. So I stood, smiled, followed. Room 4B was small, no windows, just beige walls and a polished table that reflected the overhead light too brightly. There were 2 chairs on one side, one on the other. They were already seated. Connor Blake, Linda Hart. He gave me a tight smile. She had a manila folder in front of her. Thanks for joining us, he said. No small talk, no preamble. Linda slid the folder across the table toward me. We wanted to go over a quick adjustment to your role. Adjustment? Connor leaned in, fingers steepled. We're making some strategic changes across the team as we enter this final month before release. You've been invaluable in the planning phase, but not the delivery? I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. He tilted his head. It's not about performance, Emily. It's about sustainability. We know the hours can be demanding. My stomach turned. I kept my face still. Linda opened the folder. 1 sheet of paper. Again. I recognized the format immediately. Different words. Same weight. This agreement confirms a reassignment of duties related to Project Delta. Effective immediately, Emily Reeves will transition into a support role to ensure team balance and prevent overload. Compensation remains unchanged. This document is confidential. Disclosure of its terms or rationale is prohibited. I read the line twice. Disclosure of its terms or rationale is prohibited. Linda spoke gently. We're asking that you don't discuss the reasons for this change with colleagues, media, or outside contacts. I looked at Connor. You think I can't handle it? We think it's better for you this way, he replied, too fast. We're protecting your time, making space. You're removing me from the release. You're being repositioned, Linda said, as if that cleared anything up. And this way, your pay and benefits continue, uninterrupted. Uninterrupted silence. That's what they meant. I didn't ask how they knew. I didn't say the word pregnant. I didn't confirm anything. But I saw the knowing in his eyes. The same eyes that watched me closely in that elevator 2 days ago. The same man who once praised me for pulling a product back from the brink in 48 hours, now speaking to me like I needed rest, gentleness, invisibility. I'd like to think about this. Linda's smile didn't budge. Of course, but we do ask that you return the signed document today. I felt my throat tighten. A flicker of something, panic or fury, moved through my chest. I swallowed it. Connor stood. We're not pushing you out, Emily. We're giving you room. Room. He left first. Linda lingered just long enough to add, You'll still be part of the team. Just quietly. I signed it. My hands trembled as I passed it back to her. She didn't look surprised. Just slid the paper back into the folder like it was a dry file about printer maintenance, as if it didn't hold the power to erase months of work and quiet ambition. I walked out of the room in a daze, passed by co-workers laughing in the kitchen. One of them glanced up at me, then back down like nothing had happened. Nothing had, right? I wasn't fired. My pay wasn't cut. My name was still on the org chart, just shifted down a layer. But I felt erased. That afternoon, my work queue emptied. The product dashboard no longer had my initials next to key features. Ownership shifted quietly to 2 junior managers I had trained. My suggestions in meetings were acknowledged, then repeated later by someone else, slightly louder, slightly more Connor approved. I stared at my screen until the icons blurred. At 6 p.m., the office thinned. I stayed back, pretending to organize my desk, waiting for the hallways to empty. Then I returned to room 4B. I opened the door with the same badge that had once let me into secured builds. The room was dark. I flipped on the light. I sat in the same chair where they had staged my removal and opened my phone. From my camera roll, I pulled up the photo I'd taken earlier. The document. The signature. The clause about silence. Then I opened a folder I'd created weeks ago, labeled Paper Trail. I added the image, then checked my encrypted notes. Dr. Patel appointment, Thursday, 10 UAM. Team sync rescheduled after that meeting. Connor message RE, helper, after appointment now. Official reassignment, no justification. I closed the file, locked it behind a password, logged out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my laptop glowing faintly beside me. I wasn't reading work messages anymore. I was searching. Pregnancy, workplace reassignment, silence agreements, discrimination. At 1:13 a.m., I found a story on Tech Equity Now. A business reporter named Sophie Lee had written a clear, careful piece about how companies use confidential internal memos to sideline pregnant employees without admitting fault. I read it 3 times. Then, with my heart racing, I opened Proton Mail. Subject: They told me to stay quiet. Message: I didn't announce it. I didn't show. But they knew. And they moved me. Quietly. Can we talk? I didn't sign it. Just hit send. Then I turned off the light, let the dark settle around me, and waited for morning. They didn't tell anyone I was removed. They didn't have to. The silence said it for them. By the end of the week, my desk had been moved. Not officially, just casually, like an afterthought. I came in Thursday morning to find my nameplate missing and a new project assistant sitting where I used to. I didn't make a scene, just quietly carried my laptop to a corner table near the server team. No windows, no whiteboard, no one asked why. By Friday, the team stopped looping me in. I used to run the sprint stand-ups. Now I sat on mute while someone else summarized updates I had originally drafted. My name dropped lower in the group chat feed. My calendar started showing blank space where chaos used to live. I watched two of my junior analysts pitch a solution I'd spent 2 weekends mapping out, and no one credited the original sketch I had filed in our shared drive. I didn't even correct them. I just nodded when they looked my way, the way polite ghosts do. At lunch, the seats around me filled with others, then emptied as if I was invisible. No one said anything cruel. No one called me out. It was the absence that hurt. The too careful smiles, the turned shoulders, the way people paused before speaking around me like I might crack. I ate at my desk the next day, alone, with headphones in, nothing playing, just noise to fill the air. That evening, I sat across from Dr. Patel, folding and unfolding a paper towel on my lap. Her office was warm, the hum of the air purifier steady in the background. She glanced at my chart, then at me. "You're holding everything too tight," she said softly. "I'm fine." "Emily." Her voice was gentle but clear. "I'm managing," I said. "I just can't afford to unravel." She nodded. "Then let's manage it together. But I'm writing this down. You need calm. You need proper rest. And we're not pushing you too hard, especially now." She jotted a few things. I watched her pen move. "I can write you a formal note if you need to adjust hours at work," she offered. I shook my head. "I think they've already made their adjustment." She looked up. "Did something happen?" I hesitated. Legally, ethically, I didn't know what I could say. The silence paper was still in my bag. I hadn't even filed it with HR. Just let them take their copy. "I've been moved," I said finally. Dr. Patel watched me for a long second. "Because of this?" she asked, motioning gently toward my abdomen. "I never told them. Sometimes you don't have to." That night, I went home and sat on my bed with the laptop open and every light off. The only glow came from the screen. I searched again. Pregnancy non-disclosure workplace reassignment. This time, I added the phrase I had been avoiding. Can I be punished for being pregnant? The results were clearer than I expected. And among them, again, was a name. Sophie Lee. She had written 3 more articles since the one I first found. All about the same thing. Stories just like mine. Different companies, different titles, same tactic. Hide the pregnancy under wellness language. Shift responsibility quietly. Remove influence. Add silence. And always with the same final phrase. This adjustment is confidential. I reread the note I had sent her from the burner account. No reply yet. But something in my chest told me she'd seen it. On Sunday, while drinking peppermint tea that I couldn't taste, I received a message from Slee Reports, protonmail.com. Subject: They told me to stay quiet. Message: If you're willing to speak privately, I'd like to introduce someone who can help. She works in workplace protection law. Her name is Ruth Morales. No media, no pressure. Just a conversation. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, yes, but only off the record. Sophie answered minutes later. Ruth will call you tomorrow. Just facts. You're not alone, Emily. For the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. The call came at 10:12 a.m. Monday. I took it in a conference room I borrowed under the pretense of needing quiet space for admin work. Ruth's voice was plain, no lawyery cadence, just steady. Emily, she said, let's make this easy. I don't want your story. I want your facts. She explained what silence agreements often do. Not protect the company legally, but scare the employee into inaction. That language they gave you, it doesn't hold if they removed you based on a pregnancy. But we need to prove that link. How? Paper, she said, and dates. I listened as she outlined it simply. You need a box, she said. A digital one will do, but fill it with things that can't lie. Appointment records, project timelines, Slack messages, emails, anything showing they knew or suspected. Anything from Connor or HR that shows cause and effect. I have a message, I said quietly. What kind? From Connor, the day before I was pulled from the release. What did he say? He said, "You're not in the best shape for this sprint. We'll take care of you." Ruth exhaled like someone closing a case file. That's something, she said. Save it. What else? Your doctor's visits. We don't need details, just dates. Can your OB confirm those officially? She can. Good. That's your baseline. She paused, then added, You're building a timeline, Emily. That's what matters. Not how loud they were, but how clearly the facts stack. Pregnancy, hint, removal, silence. And then, she said, we decide how loud you want to be. The call ended. I sat in that tiny room with the walls pressing in and the silence heavier than ever. But this time, it didn't choke me. This time, I was gathering air. Ruth Morales didn't wear a suit. She didn't need one. When I stepped into the small office above the coffee shop downtown, she was already waiting. Gray cardigan, simple flats, a thermos beside her filled with something that smelled like cinnamon. Her desk was cluttered, not messy, just lived in. Legal pads, Post-it notes, a framed photo of two teenagers holding protest signs. She gestured to the chair across from her like we were old friends. No recording, no pressure, she said first. Just plain talk. I nodded. You're Emily? I nodded again. She smiled, just a little. Okay, let's get to it. She didn't ask me to tell the story. She didn't want drama. She wanted data. Do you have the appointment dates? I pulled out a folded printout from Dr. Patel's office, just dates and times. No private notes. Ruth glanced over them quickly, nodded, and placed them face down. Do you have the message from Connor? I showed her my phone. The voicemail still lived in my inbox, dated one day before my removal. Connor's voice came through the speaker, calm, casual. Emily, just checking in. I know the schedule's been brutal, but I'm worried. You're not in the best shape for the release. We'll take care of you. You don't have to carry this alone. Ruth stopped the message halfway through. He gave himself away, she said. He didn't mention performance. He made it personal. That's your connection. I didn't feel victorious, just tired. What happens now? Now we build a box, and you decide what you want to do with it. I looked at her. You mean, go public? You can. Or you can push back privately, but either way, they don't get to write the narrative anymore. She pulled out a pen. Let's see, she said. You've got your doctor's appointment dates, the reassignment notice, and Connor's message. That's a solid start. Then she looked at me. Now we need 2 more things. Proof that your tasks were shifted and something in writing from HR telling you to stay quiet. I nodded slowly. I can get both. She smiled. Good. Then we're close. Do you have anything in writing from Linda? Not yet. Then get it. Casually. Ask for confirmation of the terms. If they resist, that's even more telling. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight again. You're doing fine, she said, tapping the table gently. Most people never get this far. You did. You documented. You asked the right questions. Why does this happen so often? I asked quietly. Why do they think they can just push us out? Ruth didn't hesitate. Because it works, she said. Because most people stay quiet. Because women are told to be grateful for crumbs and call it support. I exhaled. Something inside me cracked open. I'm not grateful, I said. Good, she replied. Because the next step is not about playing nice, it's about playing clear. That afternoon, I texted Dr. Patel from the office, asked if she could provide a short note confirming only the dates of our appointments. She replied in minutes. Absolutely. I'll have my assistant send a summary by tomorrow. Just dates, nothing else. You have my full support, Dr. P. I stared at that line. You have my full support, like it was a foreign language I finally understood. Later that evening, I sat in my apartment adding more to the folder. Screenshots of Slack messages where Connor began redirecting my team. A calendar screenshot showing my role quietly shifting 2 days after my last doctor's visit. A message from a junior analyst. Hey, did you give your tasks to Amanda? Just saw the update. Everything okay? The facts were stacking. Still, doubt lingered. Fear that I was burning a bridge I might still have to cross again. Then Sophie Lee emailed. Subject: You're not alone. She didn't ask for a quote, didn't push, just offered the name of an event organizer who'd worked with one of her past sources. Noah King, independent planner, knows how to keep things controlled. Says he's interested in helping you stage something clear, if you're interested. No media yet, just logistics. I hesitated. What kind of logistics? Sophie replied instantly. A gala. Quiet. On your terms. We help you speak, if you want to speak. A few hours later, Ruth called. I know Sophie reached out, she said, and I want you to hear it from me. This isn't about revenge. It's about setting the record straight. And if it gets loud, then we keep it clean, clear, and provable. I stayed quiet for a while. Then I asked, What's the theme of this event? Ruth chuckled softly. No name yet, but Noah suggested something honest, something about how companies pretend to support mothers until they don't. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She continued, And Emily, one more thing. Yeah? You won't be the only speaker. That stopped me. There are others? Always. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. The next morning, I received a new internal email. Subject: Exciting news. Our Women in Tech Gala is coming soon. Hosted by Diana Blake, influencer and partner of Connor Blake. Theme: Empowerment and visibility. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Diana, Connor's wife, the face of their gala. While I was being told to sit down, be quiet, and take what I was given, I opened a blank note and wrote the first sentence of what would become my own speech. Support isn't a photo op. It's what you do when no one's watching. Then I called Noah King. His voice was warm, grounded. We'll make it your night, he said. Honest, streamed on your terms. You say what you need to say, nothing more, nothing less. I nodded again, then said the one word I hadn't said to anyone in weeks. Yes. There's a kind of silence that holds weight, not the absence of sound, but the thick pause between what people know and what they dare to say. That was the air at work now, tight, watchful. I walked through the office and felt eyes shift away too quickly. Kindness dropped off. I wasn't dangerous, not yet, but I wasn't neutral anymore either. I started building my box. Every evening, I opened my laptop in the dim light of my apartment and combed through digital footprints. Ruth had been right. The facts were the shield. I didn't need outrage. I needed receipts. First, I built a clean timeline in my notes. My first doctor visit was on March 3rd. The very next day, I noticed my calendar had been adjusted. I was quietly removed from sprint planning. On March 6th, Connor left me that voicemail, the one where he said, "We'll take care of you." And then, the day after that, I was called into HR. That's when Linda handed me the silence agreement. Then I moved on to Slack messages. In the week before my removal, I found a thread where Connor commented, "Emily's been stretched thin. Let's move task ownership for now." That was the first breadcrumb. Then an email from Linda. "Thanks for handling this quietly. It's better for everyone that way." I saved all of it. Screenshots labeled and filed, dates cross-referenced. There was no emotion in the folder, just proof, the kind that doesn't flinch under scrutiny. Dr. Patel's assistant sent over the official summary of appointments. Neutral letterhead, just visit dates and times, signed with her initials. No mention of pregnancy, just facts. One line from her stood out in her note. Patient was present and on time for all listed visits. Records available upon request. I printed it on thick paper and slid it into a manila envelope. Then I added the photo I had taken of the silence agreement. The part where it clearly stated, "Employee will refrain from discussing reassignment reasons with internal or external parties, including press." By Friday night, the folder was real, tangible. A dozen sheets that told the story without a single sentence of opinion. I met Ruth that Saturday at her nonprofit's office. She flipped through everything silently, eyes scanning line by line. She looked up. "This is clean," she said. "You've got a timeline, motive, and suppression. That's the full arc." I nodded, but I wasn't smiling. She folded the documents carefully into a new envelope and slid it back to me. "Keep this version offline. Don't email it. Don't upload it anywhere. Not yet." Then she leaned back in her chair. "I spoke with Noah," she said. "He's already started working on the event." I raised an eyebrow. "Event?" She grinned. "We're calling it Mothers in Tech. A public conversation. Small stage. Streamed with full control. Only verified speakers. No open mic. No chaos." I hesitated. "You want me to speak?" "I want you to be heard," she said. "And only if you want to be." My stomach tightened. "I'm not a performer." "You're not," she agreed. "You're a witness. There's a difference." That night, I met Noah King. He was younger than I expected. Casual, sharp-eyed, and focused in a way that made me feel like he already saw the shape of what this could become. He'd worked with advocacy events before, clean streams, professional lighting, no corporate interference. He was calm, but confident. "This doesn't have to be huge," he said. "We're not blowing the doors off. We're building a room that feels safe and true." He showed me the venue, a loft space, 2 blocks from our corporate HQ. The irony was bitter. While they would host their women's gala in a 5-star ballroom with champagne flutes and glossy banners, we'd be 2 streets over with folding chairs, raw truth, and a camera on a tripod. "You'll have control of the stream," he said, "and Ruth will keep the legal clean. I've already got Sophie lining up a few tech reporters to cover it, but only if you approve it." I looked at the floor-to-ceiling windows and pictured it. Not a speech, a statement. Something small but sharp. Then Noah added, "By the way, did you hear?" "Hear what?" "Connor's wife, Diana Blake, just got announced as the headliner for their company's gala. She's the face of it now." I froze. Diana. That influencer with the wellness podcast and the curated motherhood aesthetic. I remembered seeing her post about supportive workplaces while sipping a turmeric latte in a silk robe. She was now the voice of corporate empowerment, while I'd been told to take a helper. Ruth texted me later that night. "We go all the way, but clean. Their show can sparkle. Ours will cut." I didn't reply. I opened my laptop again and reread the note from Linda. "Thanks for handling this quietly." Quiet had served them. It was time to break that. The venue Noah secured felt more like a reclaimed studio than an event space. Exposed brick walls, tall windows facing the street, and soft lighting that didn't try too hard. A small stage, maybe 12 feet wide, framed by 2 standing LED panels. Clean. Focused. No branding, no corporate logos, just a place to speak plainly. It was 1 week before the company gala. Noah moved like a conductor, checking audio feeds, adjusting lights, walking with purpose. He had a clipboard in one hand and a Bluetooth earpiece tucked in the other. When he spoke, it was in short, assured bursts. "We control the stream, private domain, no ad tags, clean audio, 3 cameras," he explained. "Will it feel serious?" I asked. "It will feel true," he said. Meanwhile, Sophie was lining up press contacts, not for a headline, but for transparency. She made one thing very clear. "We only run what we can verify, no speculation. If it doesn't live on paper, it doesn't go public." She asked for the file Ruth and I had assembled. I handed it over in person. Sophie spent an hour with it, then said, "We'll build a visual timeline alongside your words. 1 camera on you, 1 on the screen, no edits, no filters. If anyone questions it, we publish the documents, all of them." Ruth arrived with the final legal prep. She carried 2 sealed envelopes. One held all the paperwork: Connor's voicemail transcript, the doctor appointment log, Slack screenshots, the silence agreement. The other was blank inside, just a decoy. Noah would keep both backstage in case one mysteriously disappeared. The plan was precise. While Diana Blake posed in heels at the corporate gala, I'd be 2 blocks away, stepping into the light, uninvited but undeniable. That morning, I stood in front of my mirror holding the red dress Noah's assistant had chosen for me. It wasn't flashy, just bold, deep red, structured shoulders, a dress that said I wasn't afraid to be seen anymore. I hadn't worn anything like it in months. That night, the air outside was sharp with spring wind. The corporate gala was already live. I saw a stream on my phone showing gold-accented stages and smiling executives. Diana Blake twirled in a floor-length silver gown beneath a glowing banner. "We support women in tech." Support. I turned the phone off. Inside our venue, the chairs filled quickly. Not with journalists, not with protesters, just people, co-workers, former employees, quiet faces who came without cameras. A few were visibly pregnant. A few sat with babies on their laps. The live stream began on time. Sophie spoke first. Just facts. "We're here to share one story, with documentation, with consent. No speculation." She stepped aside. Then Noah introduced me. I walked out into the light. Red dress, steady breath. I saw Sophie nod from the second row. Ruth stood just off stage, arms crossed, calm. I started with the simplest sentence I had. "I was not removed for poor work." Silence. "I was told I was overextended. I was reassigned. I was given a paper that said I couldn't speak about why." I held up a printed sheet. The silence agreement. "Here are the dates of my medical appointments," I continued, motioning to the screen. "Here is the message from my boss, Connor Blake. You're not in the best shape for the release. We'll take care of you." A murmur moved through the room. "Here is an email from HR. Thanks for handling this quietly." I paused, let it settle, then said their names. "Connor Blake, Linda Hart. You called it support. It was punishment." A ripple, sharp, quiet, electric. "I didn't ask for special treatment. I didn't ask for less work. I asked for nothing. And still, I was told to sit down and shut up." I held up the silence agreement again. This piece of paper tried to close my mouth. Then I tore it in half. The mic picked up the rip like thunder. "It won't." Applause crashed through the room. A few people stood. One woman in the third row wiped her eyes. But I wasn't finished. I looked straight into the camera. I'm pregnant. I was pushed out before I ever showed. And I'm not the only one. If you've ever been told to be grateful for your silence, you're not alone. Then I stepped back. The lights dimmed. Sophie approached the mic one last time. And while tonight's official gala promotes support, she said, clicking to the final slide, we've reviewed their Women's Fund budget. Over 60% was spent on promotional materials and influencer fees, including staged events featuring Diana Blake. Here are the receipts. Here are the vendor payouts. This is where their support went. She let the numbers roll. You could feel the mood shift even through the screen. The chat filled up. The hashtag launched itself. My silence cost me stories poured in before the stream even ended. I looked at Ruth. She gave me one nod. You said what needed to be said, she told me, and now they'll have to listen. Outside, I could hear music from the other gala floating faintly through the night. But in here, we had all the volume we needed. Across town, the ballroom was glowing. Company banners floated above the crowd, lit from beneath by soft gold. Waiters circled with flutes of champagne. A string quartet played something elegant. Laughter carried into the night, bouncing off crystal and polished marble. And at the center of it all, Diana Blake. Her dress shimmered like ice under the chandeliers. Every few minutes, she spun slowly in front of her phone's camera, recording one more polished video. So proud to represent women in tech tonight, so honored to stand with companies that support working mothers. In the background, executives clapped. One after another, people posed beside Diana as if proximity to her could cleanse the rot hiding beneath their version of support. 2 blocks away, I stood in my red dress backstage, watching our live stream numbers tick upward. 50 viewers, then 100, then 700. Chat windows opened across the globe, scrolling faster than our moderator could pin comments. And right at that moment, Sophie hit publish. Her story dropped live, parallel to the stream. 2 versions of support, what the Women's Fund actually spends. It was clean, relentless. Pages of budget breakdowns, matched vendor invoices, footage of branded photo booths, and audio from a private event coordinator who admitted the fund was more about optics than action. The contrast couldn't have been louder. At their gala, Diana smiled into the camera. We're building a future where women are truly heard. At ours, I had just finished naming names. Connor Blake, Linda Hart. You called it protection. It was punishment. The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was electric. People didn't need more words. They needed someone to finally say the ones they'd been swallowing for years. I tore the silence agreement live, and the stream picked up every second of it. Sophie's post exploded online within 10 minutes. My silence. Cost Me started trending. First locally, then nationally. Women in tech, women in finance, single mothers, contract workers. Messages poured in, screenshots, redacted papers, emails with vague warnings. This will be better for everyone if we keep it internal. And then the sponsors started walking. It began with a tweet from a small but respected tech nonprofit. We've seen tonight's independent stream. We will no longer be funding organizations that silence maternal rights. Then another. We've paused our partnership with the Women's Fund pending review of recent reports. By the time Diana's team realized the shift, the live chat from her own feed was turning. At first, just a few quiet questions. Isn't your husband's company being called out right now? What's your response to the gala 2 blocks away? Then harder. Did you know about the silence papers? Do you support women, or just photo ops? Diana faltered mid-sentence on stream, one hand still resting lightly on the mic, She blinked, then forced a smile. "Let's stay focused on the future," she said. But the future was already elsewhere. Connor texted me 30 minutes after I stepped off stage. "You're destroying my family." I stared at it for a full minute, then typed back, "You started with mine," and turned off my phone. At our venue, the applause had settled into quiet conversations. People lingered, not because they were waiting for more, but because they didn't want to leave the space we had made, a space where words had weight again. Ruth stepped to the mic, holding nothing but a simple card. "If your policy hurts women," she said clearly, "don't call it support." The room erupted. No buzzwords, no panels, just a line that cut through every press release and glossy brochure like a blade. Outside, the street felt different, cooler, still, like something had shifted under the surface. Diana deleted 3 of her videos by midnight. By morning, 5 sponsors had publicly withdrawn support. 2 partners demanded an audit of the Women's Fund. Sophie's inbox crashed under the weight of first-hand accounts. The board called an emergency meeting Sunday night, and inside all of that noise, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Steady. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't accused. I hadn't made threats. I had spoken clearly and in full view, and for the first time, they couldn't bury it. This wasn't the end. But the silence? That was over. The next morning, the aftermath felt both surreal and whole. The live stream from the night before still hummed faintly in my mind, the red dress, the silence agreement torn, the names spoken aloud. But the real wave came as the world outside processed it. By breakfast, I had scores of texts, not from friends, but from strangers, women in tech, women on maternity leave, contract workers, a flood of "thank you, I'm next, me too." The hashtag "my silence," "cost me was alive," wild. Screenshots, short blurbs, discrete documents, proof that I was not alone. Then the sponsors began to walk. I watched from my laptop, one press release after another. The first read, "We regret to announce our withdrawal from the Women's Fund at Blake Corp. Until full review is completed." No names, no drama, just facts. Then a second. "Effective immediately, our company is suspending co-sponsorship of tonight's gala in light of new disclosures." And a third. "We cannot remain aligned with organizations that undermine the advancement of working mothers." The ripple became a wave. The board meeting that internal memo had promised happened late Sunday. I received a cryptic message via Sophie. "Board convened, emergency session, more to come." At the gala they'd planned for months, the gold banners still hung, the champagne still poured. But somewhere in the back of that ballroom, the mood had shifted. Executives whispered. Questions hovered around Diana's face like thin smoke. The live feed from our event continued scrolling. People watched both. Comparison hovered like a shadow. My phone buzzed midday. It was Connor, again. "You're destroying my family." I stared at the message. The weight of it was heavy, but not in the way he meant. Destroying was his word. My reply, "You started with mine." And I turned off my phone. Too many words. I didn't need to respond. Ruth and I met for coffee. I arrived early. Territorial heat of the cafe pressed softly against glass. She didn't look surprised when I didn't greet her. She simply slid a black folder across the table. "Here's the response from the company's insurer. They want a meeting. They want to review maternity-related claims across the division." I looked at her. She nodded. "We're moving. They're reacting. That's good. Now they have to act." The timeline I had built suddenly felt like a foundation under a building. Concrete, firm. I realized in that moment I was no longer gathering. I was climbing. Late afternoon, I walked past the gala venue. A black sedan waited at the curb. Diana exited, flanked by assistants, cameras capturing. She stopped, smiled, raised a glass. I didn't look up. I walked past. 2 blocks away, I turned and looked at the press of cars. The windows reflected back the golden letters of the building. Women in Tech Gala. I thought, they still call it support. Back at our venue, the live stream's live chat flickered. I was told to be grateful for silence. I'm adding my story now. Thank you for speaking up. Then a message popped. What's next? And the answer came from Sophie in bold capitals. Full transparency. That evening, I attended a small off-the-record dinner arranged by Ruth. Around the table sat 2 more women from the company, a product manager and a UX designer. Both had voluntary transfers. Both had fed the documentation into Ruth's folder. They exchanged quiet apologies. I told them, "You didn't ask for this. They gave it to you." Next morning, the newsletter arrived. The company announced a review of the Women's Fund. It confirmed 2 board members had recused themselves. It said the gala would proceed, but under enhanced oversight. It ended with, "We are committed to learning from internal experiences and the lived realities of our employees." In the email's small text, I spotted the line I'd come to expect. "We will refrain from further comment at this time." And I smiled, because I knew the comment they would never make, that while they'd paint support in gold and silk, the truth was what I and thousands of women had been saying for years. Support isn't silent. It isn't quiet. It isn't an agreement in fine print. It's visible. It's loud when it needs to be loud. And now, it was being heard. I walked home under a sky cracked with pink and blue dusk, hand resting lightly on the lower curve of my belly. I didn't know how far this would go, but I knew how far I'd come, and the motion forward mattered. Morning light filtered through my curtains and felt different. Not just a new day. Something undone was, for the first time in days, resolving. I reached for my phone and saw messages still pouring in. Women I didn't know. Women I'd never meet, maybe. "Thank you." This helped. "I have proof now, too." The hashtag #MySilence was no longer a ripple. It was a wave. I headed into the office zone that day but didn't go to my old desk. I went to the floor above, where a glass-walled room carried the echoes of the emergency board meeting. The scent of polished wood and stale coffee still hung in the air. I walked in, pressed my badge, and sat quietly in a corner while cleaning crews rearranged the chairs for something official. I didn't need the attention. I needed the moment. At 10 a.m., a video conference screen flickered to life. Blake Corp's board appeared. Conservative suits, taut faces, someone doodling on their pad. On the agenda, review of the Women's Fund, sponsorship commitments, and internal fairness audits. My folder of dates and receipts felt like it sat deep inside the system now. Someone else had opened it. The lead independent director cleared his throat. "We have received allegations of internal reassignment practices correlated with pregnancy," he said. "We have asked our counsel to review these matters. We will be transparent with stakeholders. We will publish the findings." The phrase echoed. "We will publish the findings." I allowed myself a small exhale. Back in my seat, I tapped the edge of my laptop. My next move was simple. I logged into the live stream archive and downloaded the recording from our event. Sophie's story had published. The number of views climbed by the hour. The chat transcripts. The shared documents. The one-page presentation we'd shown. Doctor dates, voicemail transcript, email from HR, timeline of reassignment. Pregnancy, hint, removal, silence paper. 4 simple steps. Plain words, ready. Ruth called mid-afternoon. "They've opened an internal investigation," she said. "Tell me, do you want to go public with your story beyond this event?" I sat with the question for a breath. I thought about that red dress, the mic, the tearing. I thought about my baby's heartbeat and my calm ambition. "Let's keep it simple," I said, "but absolutely public." She smiled through the line. "Good, because you deserve to be heard." Later, I walked past the women's restroom, caught my reflection. Hair pulled back, soft light. My stomach already changing, less subtle now. I paused. I placed a hand gently over it. The rest of me stood steady. My job was still uncertain. I hadn't received an official role offer. What I had was something rarer: clarity. At 4:30 p.m., the headlines hit. One business reporter after another picked up Sophie's piece. "Company under review for pregnancy discrimination. Silence agreements face fresh scrutiny. Women employees share stories of quiet retaliation." A smaller piece acknowledged Diana Blake's promo work as the face of the Women's Fund and questioned the priorities of a gala with champagne and no accountability. I returned to my desk area, figuratively, and opened an email flagged as top priority. From HR, "Dear Emily Reeves, in connection with our ongoing review, we invite you to speak with the independent counsel no later than next Friday. We appreciate your cooperation." I read it twice. No apology, no promise of reinstatement, but an acknowledgement. And that was different. That evening, Ruth and I met for dinner. Small table, shaded lamp, quiet voices. We didn't celebrate. We reviewed. She looked at me across the table. "You did the simplest thing," she said. "You asked for fairness. The rest followed." I reached out and touched my notebook. "Fairness," I said. "Just fairness." In parallel, the company sent out its public memo. A review of the Women's Fund expenditures, suspended gala sponsorships, a statement that any employee who felt unfairly removed or reassigned while pregnant should contact the HR ethics line. The tone was cautious. The wording was clean. But I read between the lines. The system had cracked. And somewhere in the background, quiet but real, my bump. Growing. Steady. I left the restaurant and walked outside into early evening. Streetlights beginning to glow. I paused at the curb and looked up at the headquarters building, the one with the banners, the one with the spotlight on empowerment. I imagined the new sign hanging there, "Parent Support Line, open now." I hadn't drawn it. I didn't need to. It would arrive. Later, I typed a note in my journal. No silence papers when the topic is unfair treatment. Real support policy for pregnant employees, approved appointments, flexible hours, no retaliation. I added, "I'm going to help roll it out." I paused. I placed a hand on my belly. I whispered, "Thank you for standing by me." I felt a response, quiet but certain. I said, "Now you stand by many." And I left the office. Not with a job title, but with a purpose. 1 month later, the lobby of the headquarters building felt different. Not just because the banners had been rehung and the lights swapped out. Not just because the echo of the gala whispers was still in the air. It felt different because I walked in deliberately, not hiding, not avoiding. Hand on my belly, still early but unmistakable now. I smiled at reception. She answered back. I didn't know her name. Doesn't matter. We nodded. Above us, a new sign, Parent Support Line, run by Women at Work Initiative. It wasn't company marketing. It was outside, independent. My folder of facts had become a foundation. My purpose had become visible. I didn't draw the sign. I didn't write the copy. But I invited it into the room. And now it stood there. On the floor above, The company posted a new policy on the internal bulletin screen. Approved time off for prenatal and postnatal appointments. No documentation required beyond standard HR policy. Flexible scheduling guaranteed. Retaliation for pregnancy-related reassignment prohibited. Silence agreements on employment practices are under review. A line typed in small but clear. We support you when no one is watching. It was mine, even if they lost track of who'd spoken it first, because I did. I didn't go back to my old team. That chapter was done. I co-lead a program called Honest Work and Motherhood, teamed with Noah King, run through the network of Women at Work initiative, streamed quarterly, free for anyone in the tech world. We teach the box building, track your appointments, track your responsibilities, trust your gut, and we teach the voice, how to say it when you're ready. That morning I walked into our old release war room. Dust on the whiteboards, my name still on the org chart, but with an asterisk. My badge still worked. I walked past the desks I had once circled like a general and paused by the monitor where I'd pulled a launch back from the brink. I placed my hand on the edge of the table and remembered. Then I straightened and walked out. I didn't need callbacks. I needed new rooms, new yards, new ground, real ground. The story had real consequences. Connor Blake's next job fell through 2 weeks after the sponsors withdrew. The board issued a statement. We remain committed to values-based partnerships. Linda Hart's professional association sent her a formal note. We are reviewing your adherence to fair practice guidelines. Diana Blake's influential brand partnerships paused. The gala was postponed indefinitely. Not revenge in the old sense. Just outcomes. No hashtags needed, no triumph speeches, just the quiet crash of reality into optics. One evening, I sat in a small cafe near the river. Steam rose from my cup of tea. My belly tipped out slightly now. I typed a note to myself. I didn't keep quiet. I kept living. I leaned back, looked out the window at the rush of city lights mirrored in the water. 2 strangers sat nearby, pregnant women, chatting quietly about baby names and workload. One looked over, saw me smiling, nodded. We both understood. We didn't need words. Then my phone buzzed. Sophie Lee, now an award-winning reporter for the piece on our story. Her text. They're quoting you in the board's public minutes. Big step. I tapped back. Good. I didn't add anything else. I rode the tram home. The world outside passed in grays and blues. My mind turned to the future, the baby, the program, the truth we'd been given and now offering, the casual assumption that support means silence. I had changed that. At home, I placed my notebook on the shelf. Tucked inside, the silence agreement shredded into bits, the voicemail transcript, printed appointment dates, screenshots of Slack messages. It was archived. Still there. No dust, but no power, because the story had moved. I changed into something comfortable, sat on the couch, went through photos from the last month, the event, the tears, the uplift, the first messages from other women. I saved one screenshot. I filed my folder today. I smiled. Then I felt a kick. Small, sudden, beautiful, real. My hand moved instinctively. That's when I thought, this isn't just about me anymore. It's about many. Support isn't a benefit you take. It's a principle you hold. And that evening, somewhere between dusk and dark, I wrote one final line into my journal. If they want silence, we'll give them clarity. I closed the book and slept, because no one could steal that.